What's up, guys? Grab that coffee out. This is the AMZ Secrets Show and your host, David Aladdin. We are live at the International Command Center, outpost number 43, podcast 43. I've built the show to jump past the basics and into the front lines of Amazon. Let's be the Steve Jobs of Amazon. Let's be visionaries. Let's push ourselves to hit our limits, exceed our own expectations. I look to understand the person, their strategies, their secrets, so that all of us can build better, leaner businesses. Today's sponsor is AMZ Secrets Keyword King, a new tool inside of our VIP platform that allows the community to create the most relevant, powerful combinations while filling that 5,000 character allowable in our Amazon product backend, thus giving you more relevant traffic and ultimately more sales per day. And today on the show, we've got a special guest. Her name is Rachel Greer. She's an Amazon consultant who spent more than 7 years working for Amazon in various capacities in seller enforcement and private label brands, imports, and compliance. Rachel founded Cascada Seller Solutions to support new small e-commerce businesses. Thanks for coming on the show, Rachel. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
So when I was at Amazon, I managed I think the most relevant experience is my time managing the private label brands compliance team. So the way that a typical brand team will work in a large corporation is you have a product development team, and that's the folks who come up with the ideas, who prioritize the ideas, who are responsible for the sales figures. Then you have a merchandising team, and those are the ones responsible for listing the products, what you mentioned about the keywords. They're the ones who are worried about that. Making sure that the pictures are good, that there's enhanced content, and you have an in-stock planner who decides how much to buy, when to buy, especially with an import supply chain. It's rather difficult to get something from here to there on time and always be in stock.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for a second? Mm-hmm. What did you do before you got into, as an employee at Amazon? How did you even become in that sector of Amazon? How does that whole system work?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in this area. I actually grew up across the water from Seattle. I was a ferry right away. The Puget Sound ferry system is the largest one in the world, so it's kind of a unique feature about this area.
Wait, you took the ferry to work?
I did for a little while.
That's kind of cool.
When I first went back to the Seattle area, my mom had a place across the water. So of course, that's where we grew up, and she lived there. And it's expensive to live in Seattle. Even then, it was expensive, and so I had to wait until I had a couple paychecks under my belt before I could move. And that was awful. So I would take the bus from the house.
What year was this?
2007.
Okay.
So it was the bus from the house to the foot ferry, from the foot ferry to the car ferry, from the car ferry to downtown, and then walk to work. It was a little bit crazy.
Interesting.
But you do what you have to.
Yeah. Okay, and then...
I was actually in the international district at that time. That was before Amazon had the South Lake Union campus. So back when we were only in 4 buildings.
So Amazon is headquartered in Seattle, correct?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
So is it like a big thing in Seattle, like Amazon's plastered everywhere? Or is that how you got influenced into joining Amazon?
No, I was actually an Amazon customer from around 2001, and then was an Amazon seller actually when I was in college. So
interesting.
In 2002, 2003, because the school bookstore had lousy text back buyback policies. I think this is how a lot of people get started on Amazon, getting mad about the school bookstore. So I just sold random stuff on Amazon for a while. I actually still have one of those accounts that does the daily payouts.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's an old account.
When I was in college, or even just coming right out after college, there's so many college students that it's because it's all they know. They just build like a business around some related college type of niche. So if you ever talk to I don't know, between the ages of 22 to 25, there's so many college startups that are built. I mean, businesses built around the college scene, like books, selling books and stuff like that. So I don't know. I always found that interesting that we tend to build businesses based on what we've experienced.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun. It's just one of those random things where it happened to be something that I did because of just having the time to do it, and then I just forgot about it. But then a couple of years later, when I got back from I've been teaching English in Austria and then took a job as a nanny in Singapore and was just all over the place. And I was like, I kind of want to go home. Oh, what's here? What's a job that I can get? And was just looking around and saw that there was a job for a German-speaking investigator at Amazon. And I was like, well, I don't know if my German...
Oops, lost you there.
Oh, drat. That's too bad. Where did you lose me?
About 5 seconds ago.
Okay. So yeah, just getting the job, just being willing to apply for it. So even though my German wasn't necessarily good enough, I said, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. But yeah, so that's how I got the job at Amazon, is just wanting to come home. And it was one of the biggest employers in the area at the time, and now it is
massive.
Very much one of the biggest in Seattle.
Okay, and then, so where did they place you? And were you there for the entire 7 years, or did you move around?
Yeah, so if you're anywhere at Amazon longer than 2 years, then you need to move. That's kind of how it works there. So it's just constant movement. Cool. My first job there, I was actually there for only about 5 months. That was the job that I got hired for, as a German-speaking investigator, and that was on the buyer side. So I'm very familiar with Amazon's fraud tools, so they're quite good.
Which tools did you say?
Much better. Fraud tools.
Oh, okay.
So the tools that are used, most applicable to your audience, are the tools that are used to find related accounts. So these tools are built to find like Russian fraudsters. So they're pretty good. So that was only about 5 months, and then we had someone in Europe quit. Actually, 2 people quit at the same time, and they were like, we need someone German-speaking to take on this role. And at the time, I had the best language skills, and it was writing daily in German. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I had a headache for a month. It was really hard. I don't know if you have any knowledge of how German works, but it is painfully difficult to learn technical German. So spoken German isn't that bad, because it's fairly similar to really basic spoken German. When you first start it, it's really easy. It's very similar to English. But as you get more and more advanced, because the French conquered the British Peninsula, all of the advanced, complicated words come from Latin in English. So all of the German words are completely different, and they're all 30 or 40 characters. They're awful. So I had to learn an entirely new vocabulary to do this. But it was really fun. It was a huge challenge, and I did that for 2 years. I worked on large seller fraud cases, large buyer fraud cases, and then a lot of really little stuff in between: stolen credit cards, stolen accounts, and so on.
What would a large case be? Do you guys have a certain seller, how much the seller makes per month? Is that a large seller case? Is there some type of number there?
It's really dependent on how much effort it took to pull things down. So the way that it worked was, usually we'd get contacted by the finance authorities. So this is something that you can do a Google search and see how annoyed the German government is at Amazon sellers. But basically, they're trying to make sure that people are paying their taxes. And so we did a lot of work to support the German government to make sure that happened. Basically, your contract in Europe, all of the locations that you're there, says that you're going to pay taxes. And a lot of people don't do that properly. And so the local authorities just follow up with sellers, one by one, until they get their information.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
It's very interesting. And of course, because the contract says that you will pay and you will follow every local law, Amazon cooperates fully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were in the fraud tool department for 2 years, and then you had another about 4 years, 5 years in the next one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my work there, it's an operations department. It's the same department that Seller Performance is in, and a whole bunch of other kind of operational teams. So we work pretty closely with Seller Performance. Again, working with sellers, we used all their tools. And as an operations department, it's hard to grow. There's only a few locations where you can grow, and it's usually people management. And I wanted to manage projects and software, not people. You end up managing people anyway at Amazon, because that's just how the structure works. But I wanted the bulk of my work to be software and projects. So I moved to compliance, and there I was doing recalls and product safety. So reviewing customer feedback of any kind to see if there's complaints from customers. Customers are weird about what they complain about.
Agreed.
Usually not. It's not
Oh
because
man.
of injury a lot of times. It's because of perceived scariness. It's weird.
Yeah.
So the number one most complained about product type on Amazon are kitchen appliances like coffee machines and toaster ovens especially. But they don't usually cause injuries actually. The number one item that causes injury is step ladders. But
Oh.
this is just a weird thing. Like that's actually from the USCPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. But we saw a very similar pattern on Amazon where people would complain because it looked scary and then wouldn't complain when someone was actually hurt. It was very strange. So customers are odd ducks, but some of those complaints turned into actual takedowns of product. So I think overall, on the balance, it was very useful, even if a lot of the stuff that we got complained about was not valid at all.
I'm curious to understand kind of the process that Amazon does behind the scenes when it comes to a takedown. Does it go through like multiple departments where on our side we don't see it, but on your guys' side it passes through many people?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, that is what happens. Amazon as a whole, and I'm sure this is something that you've probably gathered from your experience with Amazon, is very splintered and fractured. That's kind of how the company was built and how it's grown. So you have people from different departments with competing priorities, with competing feedback for sellers, with competing feedback for vendors. You have the vendor side competing with the seller side. Everyone's in competition. And the thought behind that was basically that if you have a such system where everyone is competing to be successful, then the best ones win. It's a very Darwinian kind of approach. And that can be good. It can result in a lot of innovation and people not really worrying about hurting other people's feelings because their job is to innovate. Let's make something new. So that part can be good, but it can also be kind of silly in that multiple teams were creating the same tools and multiple teams were doing the same thing different ways. The good thing is over time, the best tool wins. So that eventually will happen. But it can be awkward in the meantime, especially for anyone who's trying to hear from Amazon. And like, wait, I just got this and then I got that and it looks similar, but it's different. Yep, it is different.
Yeah, I tend to notice a lot of changes in the back end. Sometimes they stick and sometimes they don't. Okay, I want to pivot slightly and let's talk about brands. And I know you do a lot of consulting with actually with seller brands. I guess let's start with what tips do you have for us on how do we create our brands?
So to kind of where I started, where there's different people who are working on private brands in a large corporation. The first team is your retail team, which I mentioned was developing products, managing your in-stock, and managing your basically your sales strategy on Amazon. The second team is sourcing, and we had sourcing folks in South China. And the third team is compliance, and that's the team that I managed. So we worked basically hand in hand with sourcing and with product development and with merchandising. And the way that worked was basically anytime we started working with a new factory, we would do an audit and check the factory's capabilities. Could they actually perform to what they were expected to do? If they were supposed to be doing X product, we would check their machinery. Can they actually do that? Is the machinery new? Is it enough capacity to handle what we were going to send to it? And then once we had awarded the business, then it went to the product development side. So once we had said, yes, this factory, then sourcing and the factory audits were over, we moved to product development. And as with many private label products, you choose the product that you're inspired by. I like saying inspired by rather than copied because technically you shouldn't be 100% copying it. You should be making a few tweaks to make it different. And for that, what we wanted to do was emulate the product's performance. And what we did to do that was buy the benchmark product. And this was a process that I developed because there's no possible way to be an expert in every single thing that Amazon threw at us. Basically, it was all done by the numbers. So whatever sells well, we're going to copy. Okay, well, in traditional corporate settings, you have someone who's really an expert in that. Like you would hire a textile expert or you'd hire an engineer. That's normally how it would work, but Amazon likes to shake things up. So they didn't do that for us. They just said, you just get to do everything. Okay, that's awesome. And so we had to learn on the fly what the features were of the product, what the compliance expectations were of the product from regulations, safety standards, quality standards, whatever they were. So what we'd do is we'd send the product to a lab and we'd ask them to test it to fail for specific points. So one example is like a sofa. If I were to do a sofa, I would see what the expected load was on the sofa. So if it's a two-seater sofa, the average American now, I think, is almost 300 pounds.
What?
And so
No way.
It's amazing. I was like, what?
That's
so
crazy.
you always want to check things like that, right? Like you don't want to just assume that it's yourself and your size. So I was checking to see what the average weight of an American was, and that I would expect that a minimum of 2 people would sit on a two-seater sofa. So the idea was to do a test to fail to how much force would be impacted on the sofa if 2 300-pound people sat down at the same time with force. And so what we'd do is we'd test to fail at around 1,000 pounds, because that's about how much it equals when someone sits down with force.
You gotta add that.
The plop test.
You gotta add the safety multiplier, because that would have been 600 pounds, but then she added 400 pounds extra because you never know, you might get that 500-pound person or another person.
So it's someone that sits down uncontrolled. So if you're not using your muscles to sit down and you sit down in a controlled manner, if you just plop down with full force,
I got you.
then by the time your butt has hit the couch, you actually are exerting far more force than your weight on the couch. So
was it? It's
that was the idea.
Force equals mass times is it velocity? Well,
I have been out of college way too long for that.
Physics. Messing it up. All right. So
that's kind of the idea with testing, and then that way you don't have to do market testing and wait for your customers to get back to you. You actually do it in a lab and figure out what the requirements are there, and then once you get to the production stage, you verify that your samples meet the expectations from the benchmark sample. The idea being that if they made 4.5 stars with what they did, then you can then make 4.5 stars with what you do. So Amazon doesn't test the market or anything. Amazon, like all these ways that people do private label based on the way that sellers do it, that's not how Amazon does it at all. Amazon will look and see that there's enough sales in a market, a niche, find the best product in that niche, copy it, and then sell it. And we were pretty successful. I think you can see that. There's a lot of Amazon Basics products out there.
All right. Amazon Basics. Let's talk about that. Where to start? How many? Are you aware of how many Amazon Basic products there are right now?
I'm not. I think if you were to scrape it, you can see how many are currently there. When I was working on the team years ago, it was in the hundreds. So I know it's quite a bit more than that now.
How long does it take you guys to go from to create a Amazon Basic product from start to finish?
So it depends on the product. Typically textiles are longer. So a textile product launch, the challenge with textiles is just the way that the materials have to be sorted. And so if you're going to do a textile product from start to finish and do all of the pre-pros and prototype testing, every step of the process that needs to be done for producing a textile product, a unique textile product, that's close to 8 to 9 months between start to finish. So in general, textiles are the worst, and that's if everything goes well, 8 to 9 months. If something goes wrong, or if the factory can't produce to spec, then it could be even longer. For your typical household product or molded plastic product, something that's much more standard in that way, if the mold already exists, then you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 4 months. If the mold doesn't exist and you have to test things, or there's something else that's going on, then it's more like 6 months. I think the longest time to market was over a year for one product. So a lot of times people will assume that it's really fast. You just buy on Alibaba and then you have them do that. But the only way that works is because they already have a mold and they're producing it for multiple people. So that makes you very vulnerable, of course, to hijackers, because it's not just your product, everyone's using it, right? So if you really want to make sure that it's done properly, then you make a change to the mold, or you make a change to the product in some way, and that always takes more time.
What's what's the typical budget for, let's say like Amazon wants to launch like a pencil box. Um, do they allocate a certain amount of research budget, and then when you make your first purchase, what quantity is Amazon buying in?
So I didn't do in stock, so this is all just conjecture from what I saw when I was there. But the information that I recall is the very first thing that Amazon did with every single product is buy product liability insurance. This is something that a lot of sellers can't afford. So for many products, product liability insurance would be prohibitively expensive. Amazon paid for it because Amazon is a lawsuit magnet. So
Yeah.
it was much better just to pay for it and be done with it. So that would be the very first thing that they always did. The second thing that they always did was do a trademark check, which is also super expensive if a seller's trying to do it. So if you were trying to do that yourself, probably close to 5K in lawyer time. So
What kind of, you guys pay for expensive lawyers?
for a trademark and patent lawyer, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a specialty, so they have to do like a whole secondary thing after law school. So yeah, they're expensive. They're not like normal lawyers. They're super expensive lawyers. So trademark and patent attorneys, and then let's see, the compliance budget always included an audit, and that's something that a lot of sellers also can't afford. So an audit is anywhere from $750 to $2K, depending on what you're going to look at. And for the most part, we paid the $2K for the audits because as a large corporation, we wanted to check three things in the audit. We wanted to check if they could produce properly, that's the quality audit. Can they produce? Do they have the materials? Do they have the machinery? Do they have, the second piece is security. Do they have the security guard? Do they have badges? Can anyone just walk in and load a bomb into the box, for example? We obviously don't want that to happen. And the third thing is social accountability. So do they pay their workers on time? Do they force labor? Do they block exits? You'd be surprised actually at how many factory owners do not understand the basics of worker safety in factories. Things like blocking all the exits but one because, hey, there's one exit available. Like, yeah, but in a fire, you're not going to be able to find the one exit. Like, that's why there's multiple exits, guys. And so they would block off exits, just not even thinking about it. So anytime we were working with a factory, we would look at all three of those things to make sure that worker safety was covered, that the product couldn't be tampered with before it arrived.
It's actually,
and that quality production.
it's very applaudable that they do all this kind of stuff. I know that a lot of private label sellers don't do this, especially when they're very small. I mean, the resources, the lack of resources just does not, we just don't have the resources to do all this kind of checks on the manufacturer. But there's that accountability when you're a huge business. There's this myth that I want to talk about with Amazon. I'm not sure if you'll have the correct answer or any answer for it. A lot of sellers think that when Amazon requests for your manufacturer invoice, that Amazon's actually using it to find out what the manufacturer is so that they can create that Amazon Basics account.
No.
Is that true or not?
No, we have better sources than you guys, I promise.
You're right.
So the team that does sourcing is actually based in South China. They are Chinese. All of them have experience in sourcing.
Interesting.
Some of them are not Chinese. Some of them are Indian because they do sourcing in India. So you have.
I guess you wouldn't admit that if it was true, though.
Sourcing their entire careers. I'm sure they can find a better factory if they need one. That has nothing to do with it.
Interesting.
Also, they're completely separate teams. The sourcing team in China doesn't actually have any access to the team that asks for your invoices. It requires access to a special tool.
That's good to know.
And you actually have to get permissions to see it. So not anyone has access to that. Like, I couldn't just be, like, if I were hired back to Amazon today and I had a job in, say, the retail team, and I was like, it'd be really cool if I could order directly from the factory. I know there's this team that has this stuff because I used to do this. I'm going to go look. I actually can't. You have to be added to the team that does that because that's how all the systems work. You have to be added to them before you can see anything. That actually is an important thing to know, though, because if you send something to seller support, seller performance can't see it, and vice versa. Seller performance can't see things from seller support can't see things from seller performance.
I can't tell you how many times I hear like someone saying like, I don't want to send my invoices because then they'll know where I'm manufacturing it, and then Amazon Basics will come in. So what about how bold is Amazon Basics getting? Do you think Is there plans for them to go into higher priced items, or are they just going with the basic items?
Any Amazon Basics as a brand is focused on adding value through lower cost to Amazon customers. That's Amazon's brand values, and so Amazon Basics is part of that kind of thought process.
Okay.
I would not say that higher value items aren't on the ticket. I know if you look on there, you can see plenty of products between $50 and $100 or $100 and more. The benefit for the customer there is that the competitor product is at least $20 to $50 more than the Amazon Basics product. So as far as high value, it's not so much that as it is, are there the sales, and can the team, do they believe they can offer a better value to customers?
Let's say I'm selling a health product on Amazon, because I'm about to, and I've got the regulatory thing from the FDA, correct? What types of pitfalls do sellers have?
Regulatory things kind of vague, but yeah.
What type of pitfalls could I potentially have, even with the FDA approval and the Amazon approval of the ungated in respect to that specific product? Is there anything else that I need to be worried about?
So first, the FDA only approves OTC or actual drugs, prescription drugs, and medical devices. The FDA does not approve anything else. So if anyone has told you that the FDA has approved the product, they are lying to you. So that's straight up. If you put FDA approved on your listing, then if I were at Amazon, I would actually do keyword search for FDA approved just so I could find all the people who are clearly selling Chinese knockoffs. So that's something that you should be aware of. The FDA does not approve anything other than OTC drugs, prescription drugs, and medical devices. Mm-hmm. So that's first. As far as what we see in our consulting practice, so just so you know, Amazon just came out with a private label in grocery. And the way that Amazon works is you have 4 pillars. You have your consumables team, which is health and personal care, grocery, baby. Then you have your hardlines team, which is like consumer electronics, lawn, home and garden, this, tools, etc. Then you have media, just exactly what you think, books, music videos, DVD. And then your 4th one is soft line, which is apparel, luggage, watches, accessories, jewelry. So Amazon Basics is in hardlines. That's the brand for the hardlines group. So you're never going to see Amazon Basics clothing because that's not how it works. Amazon Basics is in hardlines. Amazon has its own clothing private label brands. I think it's like Larkin Row is one of them. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of articles online about that. So if you search Amazon private label clothing, then you'll be able to find stuff about that. And then they just launched a couple of brands in their grocery department.
Coffee
so
brand.
I think like Half Belly and coffee and some other stuff. Anyway, it's all over the news right now.
Don't buy it.
So, so what you can tell with that is that the brands are in grocery and they're not in anything else, meaning that Amazon hasn't actually taken on the health and personal care space yet. There is no brand in that space yet. A big reason why is because there's actually a lot more compliance requirements than you might think. What we usually find is that our clients will take the documentation from the factory at face value. And the reason why that's a problem is first of all, you're almost never working with a factory. If you're going on Alibaba, more than 70% of the people who are on there, according to a study by a competitor, are actually trading companies, not manufacturers. So the likelihood of actually hitting upon the one lone manufacturer is somewhat low. And the trading companies are better at English, and so they often will look better and communicate better than the factories will.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
That's
get that markup.
Pretty big challenge for people coming from the U.S., that the better English is from the trading company.
By the way, you're doing a pretty good job. I actually I kind of woke her up for this interview.
I'm on Pacific time, so this is my my morning voice.
It was like 9 minutes till 11 o'clock. I'm like, interview still on? No response. And then I finally got a hold of her. Yeah. But, okay. Yeah, you hit every category pretty solid with the private labels of Amazon, so your brain's working fast right now.
But yeah, so as far as being in the health category. I would say the biggest area that our clients forget to check is just double check what the factory says. They'll make up stuff. They'll provide you counterfeit documentation. I can't tell you how many times we handled like Photoshop documentation from Chinese factories. Things were obviously fake. Let's see. The other area that I see a lot of is not checking for bacterial contamination. This is a common thing because it's not regulatory. It's safety related, so people don't even think about it. But we just had a client who had, oh gosh, what was the name of it? It's biotolerant gram-negative bacteria, which is a kind of coliform bacteria that causes inflammation, and if it goes into your bloodstream, can cause toxic shock. So pretty nasty stuff, and it was in a product that's supposed to be applied to the face. So not super awesome. That's the kind of thing that we see our clients get into trouble with. Usually accepting the clients, accepting the factory's word at face value. Often the factories don't know U.S. regulations or U.S. safety, and they don't have to because they're not legally liable. They're not importing it. They don't care. And then the second part of it is missing these sort of safety issues that could get you sued. And the main reason why I see that as a problem is because the U.S. is so litigious. If you actually sold something that had bacteria in it and it could be tested in the lab and proven that the bacteria was introduced by the seller and you were the only importer of that product, then they could sue you, and in many cases they could take all of your assets. That's a pretty big problem that I think a lot of sellers just don't get they're exposing themselves to. I actually had someone tell me that they put their social security number on the import filing, and I just about barfed. I mean, that's making yourself fully legally liable for this product. Like,
It's for real. Why would you put your social?
Like,
That's scary.
Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Yeah, so it's kind
Don't
of
put the
scary
social.
kind of risk people take.
Okay, so let's talk about asset protection. You mentioned product liability insurance. Would that help protect? Can we go more in depth in that?
It can help. Product liability insurance is meant only to protect you from lawsuits. Again, the U.S. is a very litigious country, and there's a lot of lawsuits that happen. But you have to be very careful to check which kind of lawsuits. Most of the time, product liability insurance does not protect you from, say, a Proposition 65 lawsuit. California Prop 65 was enacted to protect water rights. Basically, don't dump toxic waste into water in California is the concept. It's turned into don't pollute any potential water supply for any potential California.
Today's sponsor is AMZ Secrets Keyword King, a new tool inside of our VIP platform that allows the community to create the most relevant, powerful combinations while filling that 5,000 character allowable in our Amazon product backend, thus giving you more relevant traffic and ultimately more sales per day.
Which means sweat. And I'm not entirely certain the legal gyrations that were needed to get from waterways to sweat, but it has happened. So anything that a consumer can touch or hold or can be introduced into their skin is now subject to this regulation.
Well, if there's sweat on the products, I don't know,
sweat in your hand. So if you have a hand that sweats, which most people do, I'm sure there's some people with medical conditions where they don't, but most people sweat. So when you touch any product, basically sweat reacts with the product that you touch. It's just water and salt, right? So it reacts with it and it will actually leach anything from that product onto your hands and then into your bloodstream from there. It takes a little bit more than that, obviously.
That could be like paint and stuff too.
Yeah, so any sort of coatings, surface coatings like paint or varnishes or any sort of surface coating at all, there's a lot of sealants that are used in products. Anything with plastic, so like bendy plastics have what are called phthalates in them quite often, and bendy plastics are made bendy by these products, but phthalates are toxic to humans. They mimic estrogen and they cause a lot of endocrine problems. So the idea being that if it's a warm day, and in California it does get pretty warm sometimes, you are moving your USB cable, you just touched it with sweaty fingers, and now you just introduced this into your skin. So that's the concept, and product liability insurance doesn't protect you in most cases from that kind of litigation. So it can be helpful, and it certainly is helpful if you're large enough to have the need to defend yourself. For the most part, you can have these kind of claims thrown out. They need to have a pretty high burden of proof.
Does that rule, Proposition 65, only work in California, or is that U.S. wide?
It's California is such a large market that people just follow it regardless of where they're planning on selling.
I see.
Because you can't stop Amazon from selling to California. You could stop selling in California if you're merchant fulfilled, but if you're FBA, you can't stop from selling in California.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna pivot slightly.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed on your website you mentioned you need a consistent in-stock strategy. What kind of strategy do you advise?
Yeah, so when you first launch, I usually recommend buying a 3-month supply from your manufacturer. And I estimate a 3-month supply using the predictive tools that Ace Inspector or Jungle Scout, those kind of predictive tools, they'll estimate sales, and you can get a good sense of what a likely 3-month supply will be. The reason I say 3-month supply is because if you see in the first 2 weeks that things are going well, you want to reorder. Well, it's usually 30 days before your supplier can fit you into their schedule. Then you need to get it to the boat, which usually is a week. Then it needs to be on the boat. I do not like air shipments. For the most part, air shipments really eat your profit margins, so ocean freight is the way to go. 3 weeks at least on the ocean, at least a week on the other side to be unloaded and repalletized, and then at least a week to be received into inventory at Amazon. So you're looking at about 3 months worth of for replen. So what I usually will see is people who wait too long to replenish, and they have to ship some items by air so that they won't go out of stock. And that just kills your profit margin. It's terrible.
I'm not gonna lie.
So that's what I mean by good in-stock management is you need to predict out, and Excel is great for this. Like, there's not that many tools that are better than Excel because Excel is so easy to get set up in. You just set up your model saying, okay, I'm going to sell this many at this rate, and when am I going to run out? Okay, then I need to backdate that by at least 90 days and order my stuff.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie. I ship everything by air at the moment, even in large quantities, and it does eat your profit margin, but it might be because my manufacturers are very slow, and I've been adding more, but.
And sometimes you have to bite the bullet and buy more.
So what was your?
Can also be a little bit scary.
What was your duration of sea shipping typically? Because I thought it was at least a month overseas, where it takes from China to the U.S.
Yeah, it's actually 3 weeks on the water, but you usually have to build in a week on either side because boats don't just leave every day.
Yeah,
so
I feel like that's so
time,
long.
Then it might leave on Tuesday and Friday, for example. So you usually have a couple days of a wait just to get moving.
Do you find that like a very long duration, like one, about a month and a half after the shipment's ready? So that the reason why I do air is because, your income isn't sitting in the water, or your cash flow is not sitting in the water for like a month and a half, not doing anything. And then within that month and a half, you can actually churn the losses that you would have had from air, and put that into the business back in. So
you always want to calculate it's basically a time value of money calculation. Yeah. So is the amount of money you're going to make in that month worth more than the profit that you're losing by going by air? If the answer is the profit is worth more, then go by air. For most people with the quantities that you're looking at, the answer is go by ocean. So if you're bringing in, say, 50 pieces, then go by air, definitely. There's no way that 50 pieces, unless it's like 50 poker tables or something, there's no way that going by ocean makes more sense for most people doing 50 pieces.
Mm-hmm. I noticed
if you're looking...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead. Mine's actually going to pivot somewhere else, but...
If you were looking at something like, 1,000 pieces, more than likely it's going to be cheaper to go by ocean. And it definitely should be checked. If you're looking at the difference between 10 or 15% profit margin, you could be looking at, thousands of dollars in difference. That's a pretty big deal.
Definitely. Not going to disagree there. I noticed your team is like, I think I counted 8 or 9 employees that all have significant amount of experience in Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Our business development person has Amazon experience.
Are all these employees local, or do they work from home from their own locations?
Oh, they used to be local.
Really?
So I actually used to work with every single person who's at Cascadia. I used to work with them when I was at Amazon. And for various reasons, all of us left corporate. For me, it was just, it got to be too difficult to balance family and work, and there were just there's only room in life when you work at Amazon for one stressor, and that's Amazon. So if anything at all happens in your personal life, it's virtually impossible to continue working there. So that's basically what happened to a lot of folks, is anytime something, life happens, right? And as soon as that happens, you can no longer work at Amazon. It just doesn't work that way. It's part of the reason why the campus is located in downtown Seattle. It's very attractive to young urbanites. And what I saw was that a lot of times, as soon as people had kids, they moved on to a different job, or one of them would leave Amazon, and the other one would be the one stuck dealing with Amazon. So that's kind of part of the reason why we ended up having so many folks who are like, hey, this seems like a really good idea. Because, yeah, we do all work from home. We're a virtual office. I do everything online. So all of our systems are online. We have project management tools that are online. I do online QuickBooks. Like every bit of what we do is online. I have basically an offsite bookkeeper. I have, offsite biz dev. Like everything is offsite. It's actually pretty fun to do it that way too, because you've got to come up with innovative ways to do things and new ways to collaborate and make things feel like you're still in the same office, even though you're not. But yeah, so what I was trying to do when I started expanding the company last year is find people who added value in different areas to where we had basically what I like to call a soup to nuts Amazon consultant shop. So what we're trying to do is pull people from different parts of Amazon who have different experiences, who can help sellers of all kinds. And again, our focus is Amazon. It's only Amazon. We don't do anything off of Amazon. So when we think about something like compliance, we have someone who just does testing. We have sourcing, someone who just does import logistics. So if it's your first time going by ocean, you've got to do customs filings, which are more difficult than doing air door-to-door. So she helps with that. We have someone who just does seller performance. One person who just does content, so detail page, keyword research, all that sort of thing. So it's basically everyone's got their area that they do.
I notice you have 3 business partners. How's the partnerships working, and what type of advice do you have for us if we decide to bring on partners?
So the first thing you need to do is know your partner quite well. So you know that everyone talks about when you get married, you do marriage counseling before you get married. that's the you have the hard talks about what you do about money. How do you actually define certain words that are important to you? How do you plan to keep the house tidy? Like all these things that are important when you're moving in together, which is its own kind of partnership. The same thing applies for a business partnership. So I would never get involved in a partnership with someone that I didn't have at least some knowledge of how they worked, how they functioned, who they were as a person, because especially when you're virtual, because there's so many stressors that come up. How much money are we bringing in, or how much money are we not bringing in? How are we going to grow the company? Do we have the same vision for what we want the company to be? Is there going to be conflict over more risk-taking or less risk-taking behaviors? That's a big area that I see groups with partners get into, where one of the partners who's a client is much more risk averse and they want to dot all their I's and cross their T's and be very careful. And the other partner is like, just do it already. And so you have arguments then that happen over how much risk taking to take. So I would say if you're going to take on partners or a partner, spend that time up front. There's tons of articles online about things that you should ask a partner beforehand. I actually just went through this exercise. We've done this about 3 different times with 3 different methods just to make sure that we've really communicated well. But just went through one just last week where I took a list of tasks that was created actually for an ad agency. So not quite like us being a consulting group, but close actually. So I went through every single thing on the list of tasks that were done, and we talked through every single one of them and assigned them out. So who has primary responsibility for this? Who has primary responsibility for that? How do we define it? What does that mean? And going through it all in a very systematic way. Because if you don't, then you end up dropping balls and people get mad at each other. That's never very much fun.
There's so much dynamic in partnership. I mean, I've been in businesses with 1 partner, 2 partners, different skill level sets, and I always find myself I always find myself doing most of the work in the partnerships, and from my experience, I've always realized that it's better just to contract out, um, because then you retain the 100% equity in the company versus 50-50 split. And then what if, I'm working more than the other person just sitting on their butt. Um, and then, it starts to decrease the morale, and that leads to the company starting to slow down. And because if they're not working, should I be working as much? Do you ever have these kind of talks with your business partners?
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, I'm the managing partner, so what that basically means is that if we were a corporation, then I'd be the CEO, but I refuse to use that title because we're not a corporation because it's pretentious. So I'm the managing partner. And
CEO of global company.
it's funny how many people are like, I'm a CEO, and it's like, you're one person.
Yeah.
That's you an owner.
It's
That's the
it's a
right word for
perception
that.
thing, I think, or attempt.
It
Um,
is funny because it's like, when I think of CEO, I think of Jeff Bezos, and I'm just like, I'm not going to give myself that title. So yeah, I'm coming at it from like corporate, which is a very different world. Like if you're a CEO, you're responsible
I see.
for,
Yeah.
at a minimum, the work and the jobs of hundreds of people, not just yourself. So anyway, that's just a side note. Um, for me, because I'm the managing partner, I basically hold primary responsibility for how the company is doing. That's how we set it up. And I'm the partner with a controlling interest. So I actually set it up to where, while I have partners, I deliberately set it up to where I have the responsibility, because it is something where it sounds like you're similar, where you prefer to have that control. And
Yeah.
it's annoying when you don't. So that's the same thing that I knew I would be unhappy if I got into a situation where it was 50-50 and I felt like I was being let down. I knew that would be a problem. So I actually set up the partnership to where that wouldn't be an issue. So yeah, so you have to know yourself and you have to know the people that you're working with. And for what I wanted to do, I knew that there were certain things that I'm not good at. And one of the most pernicious things out there that people say is work on your weaknesses. Don't work on your weaknesses. It's a waste of time. The only thing that you can do when you work on your weaknesses is get mediocre at something. And I don't know about you, but I have no interest in being mediocre. I want to be the best. So what I do is I work on my strengths. I want to be the very best at what I'm good at. I'm already good at something. Okay, then I'm going to work on it. I'm going to improve it until I'm the best at it. And that's what I wanted to do with the partnership, to where I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm very good at. And I know what I really suck at. So I wanted to find partners who could basically offset that weakness, because I have no interest in improving it. Obviously, this is a waste of my time. So I wanted to bring on someone who could balance that. And basically what I did is, as a partnership, Kelly is fantastic with process management. It's something that makes my eyes cross. If you put like a flow chart in front of me, I might gag a little bit. And she's really great at pointing out deficiencies in a flow chart. Okay, this step needs to go this step. Oh, but what about this? What about that? All the little detailed minutia. That's basically like, I'm going to go crazy. But it's really important for the functional running of a business, especially as you grow. It's really important. And I'm not good at it. I know that. And then you have Emily, who's fantastic at content, and she's got a great tone. And just in her part-time, in her off time from Cascadia, she's a yoga teacher. And she just has like this really warm, welcoming way of speaking. I don't. I know what I'm good at. And I am a very technical speaker and a very technical writer. And I don't do that kind of warm, inviting kind of tone that she has. And so she has a way of speaking and approaching things and seeing things that are very much the opposite of my personality. And then Christina is our business development person, and she just can have a conversation with anyone. And for me, I usually need to have some sort of specific reason for talking, or I'm teaching, or there's some sort of purpose to it. When there's not a purpose to it, like my favorite thing to do on a Friday night is to stay in and watch a movie. Like the idea
That's
of
mine
going
too.
out and talking to people in a party is like,
It's stressful. It's actually,
it's super stressful.
it takes a lot. No, it takes a lot of work, especially if it's not, if they don't have much in common with you. So,
Yeah, yeah. So then what the idea was is that I'm good at strategy. I'm very good at knowing what needs to happen when and how to solve a problem. I actually kind of see it as I don't see problems. I see an obstacle course. How do I get through this obstacle course? and I don't really see that there's a problem in my way. Like some people will see a problem, they're like, oh, problem about, and I've never been like that. And so my thing, what I'm really good at is strategizing. How do we get from here to there the fastest, most efficient way possible? And then what I tried to do as far as my partnerships was set up people who can really balance out where I am not good to where I can spend all of my time doing what I'm best at, so that as a company, we can all spend our time doing what we're best at so that we can be the most successful company out there. That's the concept anyway. But it does require a lot of communication because, as you said, if everyone else feels like someone is slouching, or it feels like half the team is slouching, the others aren't. Sometimes that's just perception. Sometimes they really aren't. They're just getting stuck in some way, or you haven't organized the partnership appropriately. So like I mentioned, if you give someone something they're really bad at, they're going to suck at it. Like it's typical, right? So I would say anyone who's going into a partnership, communication is key. Take that extra time up front to make sure that you can be good partners. All the people that I'm in partnership with, I've known for at least 8 years. So that's the way to do it.
We have about 8 minutes left, and I feel like I've just gotten like 20 more questions, but with your team, what type of tools do you guys use to communicate with each other?
So the number one tool, of course, is Google Apps. I mean, we use email, of course. There are other tools out there for email, but I love Google. The other thing I like about Google is in all the Google apps, you can make comments, and that if you @tag somebody, it automatically emails them and says, hey, you need to go respond to this. So you can actually do almost like an annotation system on your documents and whatever else you're doing. So it's really cool. I love Google Apps. The other thing that we use pretty frequently is BaseCamp. So that's for all of our project management. And we sometimes it's a project where we need the client in there, so we can add the client into our project. Sometimes it's an internal project. So it's a pretty cool tool where you can chat or send messages or upload files and connect that way. As far as our intake process, we use HubSpot. There's a free version of HubSpot where you can actually keep track of any incoming contacts. And I would say that for most Amazon businesses, that wouldn't be relevant because, you don't need to worry about incoming contacts. It could be useful to keep track of your suppliers, though. I can see it being useful to keep track of notes on your suppliers. The thing I like about these kind of collaborative tools is all of the tracking. It makes my control freak self feel so much better to know that all of the emails and the communications and the dates are all being tracked.
Is that within BaseCamp?
Yeah, so it does in BaseCamp, but the problem with BaseCamp is you can't export anything. They don't have very good reports yet.
I feel like that's something they wish they heard you say to them. The one thing they don't have, it's like those kind of things. It's like the secret that they need. I'm in pursuit of
I like downloadable reports. I'm a big metrics person.
I'm in a huge pursuit in finding the best communication tool that I can use with my team. That's why I've usually asked almost every single guest that has come on what tool they use. Mainly because you've got Google with all your emails separated, and then every single person on your team has their own tasks to do. And right now, my best tool I use is actually Skype, where I have them all just I list their name and what they do, and
chat through Skype.
I just wish I could track the progress, and they could insert their progress note, and then I could know exactly where they are, and then just ping back in and forth. It'd be sweet if someone.
That's exactly how BaseCamp works. Actually, there was a situation a couple weeks ago where Kelly was out, and I needed to follow up with a client because she was sick coming back from a trip, and so I went through and read everything in BaseCamp, read the correspondence and the notes, and reached out and said, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's your updated document, and here you go. And I was only able to do that because all the documentation had been kept in BaseCamp.
Holy cow. I'm looking at their site, and it says, just in the last week, 7,349 companies just got started with BaseCamp. That's insane growth.
It's pretty successful. I think the thing that I like about BaseCamp is that it's so customizable. So you can do it for your own company, or you can make multiple BaseCamps for your own company, or you can invite clients in, or you can set things up just for yourself. So I've got a couple BaseCamp things just for templates. So we've set up standard operating procedures for pretty much everything. So if we have a new client onboarding for one particular thing, then we have a list of tasks and owners already assigned to where as soon as they get onboarded, they get added to their BaseCamp, we copy in the list of tasks, and we go from there. So it makes life a lot easier.
Does each team member need their own BaseCamp account?
Yeah. So,
okay, so you got to onboard them into there too.
Yeah,
okay.
So we pay on a monthly basis based on the size of our company. There is a free version where if it's just you, then you can do it. So like if you're a sole proprietor and you just want to keep track of yourself, you can do that. I'm pretty sure it's free if it's a sole proprietor and you're not inviting anyone else in.
This might be the winner. I'm not gonna lie. By the way, I'm not affiliated, and I don't think you are either to BaseCamp. I actually not.
No, I'm not related in any way. Otherwise, I'd complain more about the things I don't like.
The CEO of BaseCamp was on, I think it was eCorner. I don't know if you ever listened to that show. Mm-hmm. It's a Stanford University podcast / show. The guy, he seemed very smart, which was cool. Okay, anyways.
What I like about it as well is that sometimes it can integrate pretty well with other tools. So like we also use Toggle, Toggl, there's no E. And that's to keep track of time. So in a consulting company, and this might be important for you as well if you're doing external like VAs, keeping track of time is a big deal. So we use Toggle, and if you add the Toggle extension to Chrome, you can keep track of your time in Google, in BaseCamp, and anything else that has an integration with Toggle. So if someone's working on an email, they can track their time on that. If they're working on a project in BaseCamp, they can track their time on that. It's pretty convenient.
Can you hide certain team members from other team members? Is that possible? Because what if you have like virtual assistants that you don't want them to know about each other? And I guess.
Oh yeah, so you can add different people to different BaseCamps. So obviously none of our clients know what each other is doing.
That's
so
awesome.
We have different BaseCamps for each client.
I get it. Very cool. I'm actually gonna have to look into it more and possibly join this type of service.
So everyone's like, what is this BaseCamp?
I know, I feel like we're advertising them.
The two things that I think are weak right now are, first, they haven't got very many of their APIs set up. They do for a lot of stuff in BaseCamp too. So I know they'll do it eventually, but it's really annoying that there's certain things that can't transfer over. So because we use so many different tools, it's really important to have those integrations. And BaseCamp 3 doesn't have them yet. So that's a problem. But it's so much better of an interface than BaseCamp 2. I hate BaseCamp 2. So I really like BaseCamp 3. I just want them to talk to things. And then the second thing is it doesn't have downloadable reports. So all of your reports have to be within the system. And they're decent reports. Like you can see who's overdue and what's going on and outstanding tasks and stuff. That's very helpful. But it's annoying that I can't download it. I won't be able to download it. And see time to task completion. Like I want to see how long does it take on average for us to complete this kind of task. Well, I can't check that right now because they don't have downloadable reports. So eventually I'd like to see that. But again, I'm not affiliated with them, so I can complain as much as I want.
They got to step up their game.
See what happens.
Okay, we're just about out of time. Is there anything you want to mention that we didn't get to talk about?
I think that the thing that I would really reiterate is if you're doing private label on Amazon, don't trust your supplier. They're there to make money and they're there to sell you stuff. So if they tell you this is compliant or this is safe for the US, they're not the ones importing it, you are. So you're the one taking the risk. At the end of the day, anyone in the chain can get sued, but basically if they're in China and they have no US presence, then they really won't get sued. If they do have a US presence, then you've got a better situation there. The CPSC actually just fined a Chinese company that had a U.S. presence. I think it was in California. They had a U.S. office. They just fined that company $15 million for egregious violations of U.S. law. So this is not something that is, a potential. This is something that is. And Chinese companies, by and large, don't see U.S. law as being something that they really need to worry about, and it shows. So I think that's what I would leave everyone with is you're the importer. You're the one legally responsible. If someone gets hurt, they'll sue you. If there's some sort of problem with the product, you're the one who bears the risk, especially if it's FOB pricing. That means you're the one carrying all of the legal risk for the product. So know what those requirements are before you drop thousands of dollars on a product.
And then I'm also going to add a note, avoid selling stuff where customers are putting it on their skin. avoid consumables unless you're going to eat them. And then
Yeah, I don't even recommend importing consumables. Just buy them domestically. It doesn't make any money. There's that. So maybe don't do consumables at all. But if you're going to do them, buy them domestically, because it's just the import requirements are stupid difficult.
And if you're selling a couch, make sure you have 600 pounds of weight on it. How can our audience contact you if they want to talk to you more?
Our website is www.thinkcascadia.com. And on there you can see our office phone, our primary email address to contact us. It's info@Cascadia, and the Skype ID for our biz dev person. So the person who you would talk to primarily is going to be Christina. She handles all of our intake stuff and sorts it to where it needs to go. So you might imagine with so many different people doing different things, and we need a sorter. So she helps with whatever the issue might be, whether it's performance related, like one of those safety incident complaints or whatever, or if it's launching a new product, or if it's my product is doing okay, but I need it optimized. Anything that comes up that's really Amazon specific, and she sorts it to the right person, and then we go from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, Rachel. I appreciate your time and all the expertise that you shared with our audience. There's definitely a lot of awesome golden nuggets there.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me this morning.
Yeah.
And for being patient with my Pacific time self.
You're a good sport about it. David Aladdin, Rachel Greer. Today's sponsor is AMZ Secrets Keyword King. What if you could sell 10 more units per day on Amazon, or 100 more units per day? The key to selling more on Amazon is driving more traffic to your Amazon listing that's related to your listing. Reviews help, yes. Quality photos help, yes. However, increasing relevant traffic is king. The only way to sell 100 more units per day is having at least 100 more people visit your listing per day. Keyword King leverages smart algorithms to assist you in building the best keyword lists for all your products. Not only will you hit 5,000 characters total and 1,000 characters per line in the back end for your Amazon listing, you will do so knowingly with the best combination of words. Right now, you might have 3,000 characters filled up, and that's pretty darn good. But you really don't know for sure, and you should actually be at 5,000 characters. It's tiring, time-consuming, and cramped in Amazon's back end. Keyword King performs many tasks on the fly, live, while you are building your list, and ensures your list is as powerful as can be. It intelligently eliminates spaces, duplicate keywords, and other negative things that would hurt your sales. You can save an infinite amount of keyword lists, return to them later, and compare which lists are performing best for your products. Best of all, it allows for a one-click translation of your first and second rows to your fourth and fifth rows in Spanish. Over 55 million potential U.S. shoppers are Hispanic in the U.S., and they type directly into Amazon in Spanish. These keywords are often untargeted and easy sales to add to your bottom line. It does this all while applying smart keyword cleaning algorithm. In the end, organic traffic to your listing is free. Getting free high-quality traffic is the way to build sustainable, long-term Amazon businesses. Keyword King will destroy your competition using amzsecrets.com. Guys, I hope you guys loved the podcast as I did. Be sure to join our Facebook Mastermind secret group at amzsecrets.com/FB. It would help tremendously. Also, if you could leave a quick review on iTunes. Every question has an answer for Amazon, and finding the right one is critical to your success. amzsecrets.com does this, and it does it all for free. So why not? See you guys all there. This podcast has been directed by David Aladdin, a global king in logistics, strategy, and secrets. David Aladdin, out.